Hello there, it's Jay here from Jay's Vintage Junk, and if you probably guessed already by what you see in here, we're working back with the little Sony radio. I've actually done some work off camera to make life a little bit easier. If you've noticed, I've actually separated the two boards of the radio. So what we've got here is basically, this is the power amplifier section. It's got the DC to DC converter on it, and connects to the actual keypad on the front. Now I can't disconnect these because of that ribbon cable there, which I've mentioned before. What I was able to do, and it was not easy, I was kind of apprehensive to do it, but I'm quite glad I have now, is I took the desoldering station and basically I desoldered across there the two banks of pins, so I could actually remove this entire section here from the radio. Now, a couple of reasons for that. One, I was worried about all this moving around and me tearing this ribbon cable there. With that out of the way, it's a lot easier to actually work on this section. Plus, it also gives me a lot more access to the parts around here that I have to work on, because we've got that capacitor we need to put back on there. That was another 47, wasn't it? 47 at 6 volts we need to put back on there, and then we need to remove those two, and there's a hell of a lot of cleanup work needed in that area as well. So I thought taking those off would be an advantage, you know, and make life easier for us. Also, big mention, big thanks to fellow YouTuber Radio Cruncher. He put a comment on my previous video. He's worked on a few of these little sets, and he reminded me there's actually two capacitors actually in the can there in the DC to DC converter, which we'll need to check out as well. And he did also mention having issues with the corrosion on some of the actual connections here. Now, when I desoldered these, and I did use my proper, you know, a desolder station, I wasn't just using a solder sucker, I got all the pins clear to the point where I could whittle the entire connection, I could whittle each pin free. So they were definitely free. When I lifted those two sockets off, one of the pins, if you can make it out there, actually the pin actually broke off. Let me see if I can get you a little bit closer on that. I'm not sure if I can or not actually. Let's get you down. Oops. There you can see. Can you see one of the actual pins had actually broken away, and there's another one actually over there that's done the same. Now, it was only those two, but I think that was actually down to the corrosion rather than my desoldering skills, because he did say that he encountered some contact problems on the connectors, and then he was assuming it's due to the actual electrolyte that's leaked on there, and I'm wondering whether it had just rotted on that pin there and it had weakened it enough that it just broke away. I mean, these are, we can fix this when we reassemble the radio. We can take that pin out and we can replace it, or solder a little piece of wire on so it makes contact. So I'm not worried about that, but it does go to show, you know, you have to be super careful with these things. So like I said, I've got all those parts off now. I can now work a little bit easier actually on this part of the radio. I think what we'll do first is we will work on this area here, which is what we started in the last video. So we've got that capacitor and that capacitor to take off. They're both 47 UF at 6 volts. So we'll get those off the board, and then we're going to have to do a lot of cleanup work round here. There's a lot of electrolyte spill all over this part of the board. Let me see if I can get you. Let's see if I can get you in. That's a bit too far, come on. Let's see what is. That's not looking too bad, is it? You can basically see what we're showing there. So, except for the bit that I want to show you is not on screen. There we go. So basically, if you can see the actual electrolytes seep between that IC there, it's really quite nasty. So that's what we're going to start on. We'll get those two capacitors off. We'll use the same technique we used before. Basically, we'll just walk them off the board, and then we're going to do a load of cleanup work on that area. Make sure we can get rid of all that leaked electrolyte. We'll see if we can pop that can open and check the two capacitors out in there, and then we can start rebuilding this whole section, put the new capacitors on and everything. So I think the iron should be nicely warmed up. Clean that off. A bit of fresh solder. I've got some thin stuff here. I'll do. And let us see what we can do about let's add a bit of fresh solder to either side. I can smell that already as soon as I went in with the iron. Sometimes you have to rub a little bit like that just to basically break through the like the crystal surface that's built up around the solder, and we should be able to get a bit of new solder to flow in. So we're not worried about the capacitor itself. That's scrap. We don't want to risk lifting a pad on the board. Let's go in and let's just see if we can lift that. That one's being really tricky. You might get it that way. Usually once you've got one side up, it's not too bad to get off. It's getting that first, the capacitor to move at first. Might have to resort to fingers. I was trying to use the tweezers so you could see more. There we go, that's lifted. See more what was actually happening, but sometimes fingers are preferable, and you'll just have to excuse the fact that you're not going to be able to quite see everything that I'm doing. Let's go in that side and we'll just see if we can lift it up a bit on that side. Go back in. That side's up now. Let's see how well that's still really well attached on the other side. Let's see if we can get that to come off now. There we go. That's up. It's just being held by a tiny little bit of solder there. Let's just, there we are. And that's off. And it was pretty nasty under there. I don't think we've lifted a trace though. I think we've got away with it. It does look very, very corroded around there though. That was not a good one. I don't actually think this next capacitor there looks like it's leaked. The actual legs don't look too bad on it. But obviously we're going to replace it anyway. We're not going to leave it on there. Just turn this heater off a little bit. So again, we'll go in with some fresh solder. Just add some fresh solder to the old solder, see if we can help it to flow a bit. Same on that side. I'll get it with the we'll see if we can get it with the tweezers. Again, I think I'm actually better using my fingers. Let's lift this side up. This one's actually being quite tricky. You do need patience for this. Don't try forcing it. Basically, it will go eventually. It will definitely go eventually. I saw that then. There we go. It's just started to lift on that side. There we go. That side's up. I've just caught those wires, but unfortunately not melted them, just caught them. We'll go in from there. There we go, that side's just lifted. That's up. And we should be able to ping it off. Okay, excellent. Gone. And I don't think we've lost any pads there. We've got a bit of clean-up work to do now. In fact, we've got quite a lot of clean-up work to do now. And we'll get some fresh solder braid. And I'll just dope it up with a little bit of fresh flux. It just makes life easier. There's a little bit of crud on the end of there. Let's get that off. We've got nice fresh solder braid to go with. As I said, we'll add some fresh flux to that. Put that down. And then we can just wick up basically that solder that we've left on the board from taking those off, and we can get any of the excess old solder off there at the same time. And there we go. Just wick that up. It does stink a bit when you're doing this because you've got all that burnt electrolyte on the board. Add a little bit of fresh solder there. And then I can suck it off again. Take my iron. There we go. That's better. That's looking a bit better. I think there's still actually a bit of crud on there. There we go, that's much better. That got rid of it. And next, let's get rid of some of this this used solder braid. We've just got those two there to do. Then we can go in and have a bit of a clean up. So we've got those two, and that's going to need some extra solder on it because I can see it's really nasty there. So let's just add a bit of fresh solder there so we can dilute that really nasty stuff. I don't know what it is with the electrolyte. It seems to make the old solder kind of go like a crystalline. It's not like solder anymore. It doesn't really melt like solder. But what you can do is if you scrape into it a bit with the iron, you can start getting it to flow. And then if you add some new fresh solder to it, it will then basically that will mix in with the nasty stuff and actually allow it to flow again, so you can get it off the board and clean up. Right, again, just add some fresh. Technically this stuff has a flux already in it, but I always like to add a little bit of my own flux to it. And we can just have a bit of a clean up, see if we can get this old stuff off. There we go, that's that off. That's that off. Let's turn that round a bit to make life easier to get to. There we go. Still a bit on there that we could do with getting we go. Get it off with the iron. Right, so that's the worst. Basically, that's the worst off there. Let's get this back so you can see. Oops, where are we? Where are we? There we go. Right, now it's just a case of basically having a bit of a clean up in this area here. So we'll get the IPA, give it a good blast with the IPA. And where's my little toothbrush? There it is. The reason we're going in with the toothbrush is so we can get in, and this is a very soft bristled toothbrush. It allows us to get in around that IC where all that corrosion was and all that electrolyte, and we can get it off. Obviously get it off the board. There, that's looking better already. Alright, let's get a Q-tip in there and we'll have a bit of a clean up with a Q-tip. Right, now where are we? That way. There we go. There we go. And we'll have a good clean up now. It's got a little bit more work there. Still looks a bit manky around there. This looks a lot better. A little bit manky around here as well. We'll have to do a little bit more work around here. That's not looking too bad now. Those pads are alright. There's a pad there, like I said, I'm not too happy with yet. And there's a trace there that looks a little bit worse for wear. The traces on that side have come up really nice and clean. They were all green and nasty and they've come up okay. And we'll just get the iron in and we'll just see. Yeah, I'm trying to just flow a little bit of fresh solder on that. I'm just seeing whether there's perhaps a little bit of the old leg still there. I don't think there is, but we'll get a bit of solder and we'll try wicking that away again because it didn't quite look right there. The other ones look fine. It's just that one looks a little bit worse for wear. Cut that off. We'll add a little bit of fresh flux. But we'll add it straight to the board this time, just around where we're working there. I'll just try wicking that away again. That looks better. It's basically just a ground point anyway, I think, so it's not like the end of the world, providing it's actually connected to ground. That actually looks a lot better now. Right, let's give that a quick clean up again and a quick scrub over again. Where's my IPA gone? There it is. I'll give that a quick. That's better. I'll give that a quick clean with a Q-tip as well. There we are. Yeah, we've got a proper pad back now. Nice clean pad there. Yeah, so we've got a full set of nice clean pads. There's that little bit of solder that's just stuck, or is that a... In fact, what we've got there is where the electrolytes actually got under the solder mask, and it's actually lifted the solder mask up there. And I don't think it's that bad that I need to redo the solder mask or anything, but let's clean that up. Yeah, because the pad that we're interested in, which should be a ground, looks absolutely fine there. It just needs tinning back up. In fact, let's just double check that that is indeed connected and it is a ground, because I think that side's ground. Let's get the continuity in. And that's another thing with this, because of the corrosion, is you do have to keep checking as you go what state the continuity is in. So that's the point we want to check. Yeah, and that's absolutely fine. That's still connected to ground, still connected to that ground point there. We're happy with that. So basically that part of the, in fact, I'm just going to have a look at that pin there, because that looks a little bit black compared with everything else. Let's just, now I can't smell anything, that looks okay now. I think it might have just been a bit of yeah, it's fine that. Give it a quick clean. Yeah, that looks okay now. Let's get that quick splish over. Yeah, there we go. That part of the board now doesn't look too bad. You can see where we've lost a little bit of the solder mask just round there. In fact, we've lost a little bit there as well, but it's not terrible. I could possibly redo that in with a little bit of conformal coating before we put the new capacitor on, actually, if I'm thinking about it. Right, next thing we need to do is look at getting inside that can there. So unfortunately, there are two capacitors. In fact, let me get you zoomed out a little bit. Oops, there we go. There are two capacitors we need to look at inside that can there. And this can looks like it's going to be a bit of a mare to get off. I've got a copper foil there, screen in between the two, and it seems to be, there's a base of the can soldered on there which we'll have to remove, and once we've got that off, we can actually desolder, yeah, you're going to be a pain, the top of the can, and then we can lift that off and we can actually get access to those capacitors. Right. I think this is going to be a job for the desolder braid again, at least to get some of the solder off from around there. Let's make a start with this connection here. It's starting to go. There we go. I've got quite a chunk of the solder off from that one. I'm feeling this may take me a little bit of time, so what I might do is just pause the video and come back once I've there. Do you see that then? Basically what we've got to do, and unfortunately the metal just acts as like one giant heat sink, but it's literally just a case of going around that and getting all the solder off from them points, and then we can get that can off. So I'll do that off camera and we're back as soon as we've got that sorted, so back in a sec. Okay, I managed to get the can off, and actually it wasn't quite as bad as I was expecting it to be. I did exactly as I was saying. I used some solder wick and got most of the solder from around the top there. This is a little can. I then basically just put my screwdriver on the back of it there, put a bit of pressure on it and touched that connector with the soldering iron, lifted that side, went round, lifted that side, went round, lifted that side, and that piece popped off, popped up like that. And then fortunately it's only two tabs on the other side, so I was able to just hold the can, warm that one up, pull it out, warm that one up, pull it out, and the can's come off. So that'll be nice and easy to put back on after. and it's really glad. I'd actually forgotten. I had read about them in the service manual that there was some electrolytics in there, but I'd forgotten about them when I started doing on this, and like I said, Radio Cruncher did remind me that there are some hidden electrolytics in here. And it's a good job we got in there, because I can see corrosion around both of those. We'll do a quick smell test, but I can tell already that they're bad. So let's. Oh yeah, there we go, lovely. And what have we got in here? We've got a 10 UF at 35 volts and a 22 UF at 6 volts. Now we've got the 22 UF at 6 volts here, haven't we? I think these are 22 at 6 volts. 22 at 6 volts, there we go. So we've got a replacement for that there. And that one is a 10 UF at 35 volts. Now I should have them in my stocks anyway. That's quite a common size for me to use. So let me have a quick look. So how is that? The one's 220. 10 UF at 35 volts. I've got them there. Let's get one of those out. Oh, that one's open, might as well use that one. Right, so we've got, and again this is one, unfortunately this is one of the problems with modern, these are modern ones and they are actually smaller than the original, but we should still get it to work. So exactly the same electrical rating as the original one, but it's actually the same size as the 6 volt 22 UF there, even though that's a 10 UF at 35 volt, and if you look at the original it's about double the size of it. But like I said, I don't think that's going to cause us a problem. I think we can still get that to work nicely. Right, we better get those two off. Unfortunately, the grounds are both in the centre there, so let's flood some fresh solder into the centre and see if we can get those 2 points there to lift. Because if we can, it will make lifting the rest of the capacitors easier. Let me see if I can just get it to. No, these are going to be awkward, like the other ones. Let me try and clean my iron off a bit. Got some contaminate. That's the only other problem when you're working with boards that are contaminated with old electrolyte. You have to keep cleaning your iron literally every 30 seconds or so, because it coats the end of your iron and basically end up with a horrible deposit that doesn't really take solder. Let's see if we can get that to lift now. There we go, that side's up. Oh, and that does stink. And we'll go back in there. Let's see if we can get that one off. It'd be nice if we can get that one off. It'll make getting the other one off significantly easier. So it's obviously free. It's free on that side quite nicely. I've just soldered it back down. So let's see if we can get in here and see if we can get the other side off. Come on, off you come. Where's my solder? I'm going to have to add some extra solder to that because it's being awkward. Right, we'll go in and we'll add some more. And flood it in there because we're only on the ground plane. It doesn't really matter. We're literally using that to help us get this component off. We can clean it up after. Let's make sure we don't touch anything we don't want to touch. There we go, that's up. We should be able to make sure that, there we are, and it's off. that off now. That's our 10 UF there. And with this big blob of solder here, hopefully we can move that so we don't touch it with the iron. This should help us be able to lift. There we go. Right up. Not even got, there we go, that's off. Lovely. That one come off nice and easy. And that does stink. Yuck. Okay. Now let's clean up all this excess solder we've left on the board, and then we can clean the board up. And then really we're ready to put the new new components on. So right, we'll go in like that. And we can suck up a load of that excess solder that we left on the board. I'll have to come in with this hand this way. This is very tricky trying to do this with a tripod on your workbench, I'll say that. You might have noticed as well, I don't know if you think that the video quality's gone down or what, but unfortunately that camera that Andy let me have finally died a death. I've been having a few issues with it of late, and I said unfortunately it has finally given up, so I'm using one that I picked up cheap. It is technically a better camera. It's got a 1080p output at 60 frames a second native, so like I say, it should be a better camera, but I just don't know how good the lens is in it. I mean, it's not a cheap one, it's a Pioneer, but we'll have to see. And if this is no good, we'll have to see if we can perhaps splash out a little bit and spend some money on one. Get you zoomed. Oops, get you zoomed in a bit. Right, there we go. That's not looking too bad actually now. We'll have a little bit of a clean up around there, and then we'll come back and we'll repopulate everything on there with some nice fresh components. Let's get the old IPA out first. We'll give it a bit of a squirt. In fact, I will go in very quickly with the we'll get some Q-tips. The Q-tips are probably better actually for getting in here for cleaning up. That's not looking bad at all actually. It's looking pretty good in there. Right. Yeah, that's not looking too bad. In fact, I think we've made quite a reasonable improvement there if we look at all where we've fixed. I am tempted to go in. Oh dear. There we go, we've buggered it now. We have had a disaster. That pad there has lifted. Now I'm hoping, and that's where you've got to be so careful, what's happened there is a little thread from my Q-tip has actually caught on that pad and lifted it. We're going to have to see if we can sort that. First of all, we need to make sure that that is still electrically connected, and then we can do a little bit of a repair to that. Let me get my continuity tester. That's a bit of a shame, but I don't think it's the end of the world. If we try it on that component there, which it should be connected to. Right, the pad is still connected. So we're going to have to do a tiny little bit of a repair there. See if we can just get that pad to stick back down. And I might see about doing a little bit of touch up of the damaged solder mask around there at the same time, because we'll probably use the same stuff to get that to stick back down. What I will do is just make myself a quick brew, because I'm actually losing my voice as I'm talking to you now. So I will make myself a quick brew. I'll get everything we need to repair that, and we'll finish off sorting this board out. So back in a sec. Right, okay, we're back, and I've got the all important coffee. Right, that was much better. And I've got some of my conformal coating here. So what we'll do is I'll just squirt a little bit of this out. We only need a tiny touch. Oops, that's way too much. Far too much there, but never mind. Fortunately, it goes a long way, these tubes. Right. I'll take a little bit. So I've just got a little bit on here. I'm not even going to use a brush, I'm just going to use the end of a cocktail stick. And all we're going to do is we're just going to touch in where the solder mask is damaged, where the electrolyte had got to it, around there. Cover that in. That side there, so that was missing. Just touch that back in there, and I'm going to get a little bit basically around where that pad's lifted and get a bit, and I'm basically going to use the solder mask to stick that pad back down, because it's not bad at all. It's just lifted on that side, it's still got continuity. It's just lifted a little bit. Oh, and there's over here there's a little place where the solder mask's been damaged. So we'll just touch that in as well. Because what we don't want to happen is, like when I solder that connector back on there, there's a little bit of extra solder to come across and bridge onto that. So if we just do it with a little bit of conformal coating like that, that'll just prevent that. There we go, that's looking okay now. Next thing I will do, now if you've never used this before, what you've got to be aware is you actually need UV light to set it. And the kits do come with one of these little LED UV torches like this, and it works perfectly well. What I'll do is I will hold down that dodgy pad there with my cocktail stick, and we'll start with the UV. And it doesn't take very long. We're only talking, what, perhaps about 30 seconds or so of just playing the UV light over it, and it will cure. Basically like this. That's probably about it. I'm gonna lift that up. Yep, that's held that that broken pad down. Let me see if I can get you zoomed in so you can see it a little bit better. There we go. I won't take you right in, but that should be, at least you should be able to see it a little bit better there. Where are we? There we are. So as you can see here, that's where we've done the little repair. You can just see the slightly different colour of green of the conformal coating to the solder mask where I've just gone over there. And there was a little bit there that I've just, like I said, it was just where it was missing, and my worry was when I put that connector there back on, we've got a little solder bridge forming between like some of them tracks there, some of them pads there, so by just touching that in we've prevented that, and we used a little bit just to stick that pad back down there. So we're pretty much at the point now where we can start putting the components back on the board. Now, we might as well start round here where the can is and put them back on first, and I'm going to try something new. I can't actually find my really nice tweezers at the moment, so to put these components on, I'm going to try some, like I said, I'm going to try something new. We will I'm basically going to hold them like that with these, they're like little helping hands for grabbing hold of parts and stuff. I found them in the bottom of my toolbox. And I'm just wondering if I can grab hold of the capacitor right like that. It should actually give me, I should be able to hold the capacitor really nicely and put it on the board, place it and then solder it in place. I'll just add a tiny touch of solder to the edge of that, just to the pads on that capacitor before I start trying to fit it. Right, where's my knife thin solder? There it is. In fact, this holds the capacitor quite nicely for me to tin the legs up on it. There we go. We'll make sure we've got it in the right orientation, which is that. And we can go in. Okay. That doesn't actually look too bad. I will just have to get in on this side just to solder that side down like that. Got it. I'll just tidy that side up there like that. Yeah, I'm quite happy with that one there. Then we've got the next capacitor to put in. Now this one, although the value is identical to the old one, because this is a modern component, the physical size is actually somewhat smaller. It's not to the detriment smaller, it is just a little bit. It will still fit on those pads, fortunately. Right, okay. So again, I've got it on the. I'm going to see if I can do that middle ground point first. So we'll go in with a soldering iron, but I'm going to have to add a little bit of fresh solder. There we go. I nearly put the capacitor in the wrong way around them. Oh, I didn't tin up the bottom of this capacitor either. I'm getting ahead of myself. Just very gently tin up that. Like that. There we go. And again, we just want to basically heat the pad and we'll slide the capacitor. There we go, lovely. Well, we've got it, we might as well touch this one in because it's right where it should be. There we go. Remove that there. That's not bad at all. And we'll just pop in there and just dress those two legs up a tiny touch in there. They're 2 ground points anyway, so those are fine. Those are nicely anchored. Right, so I'm quite happy with that that point there. We might as well do that one there where we had to do the little pad repair. So I need some fresh piece of solder. I'm just going to tin up that pad there with a little bit of fresh solder to that. Yeah, it's stuck it. That one's okay. That's okay. Okay, there we go. I pressed a little bit too much on that one. You just want them, excuse me, just lightly tinned really. You don't want too much solder on them. what I like to do is have a little bit of solder on the pad you solder into, and again a little bit on the actual component leg. Just heat it up and basically just slide it into place. Right, now these are no, where are they? Yeah, these are the 22 UF at 6 volts, these three that we have to replace around there. Let's get them old ones out of the way and up there. And we'll bring the new ones in. 22 UF at 6 volts, here we go. Now where's my, there we go. These are the replacement capacitors. Again, I'll just tin up the legs before we attempt to install these on the board. There we go. A little bit too much on that one. There we go, get rid of that. Right, and let's put this first capacitor in place, and we'll do that one. This is the one where the pad got a little bit damaged, but like I said, we managed to recover that. So we'll put this. Let me just clean my end of my iron off. Go in. Oops. Okay. And there we go. Let me just, oops. Oh, that didn't work very well. Let's just get back in. Sometimes fingers work better, actually. There we are. I think I've come down to the conclusion that if I use my fingers, I know I can get it nicely on the board. I know it means that you can't quite see as much as what I'm actually doing, but at the end of the day, it's more about me actually getting this thing repaired. So unfortunately, I think you are going to end up seeing a lot of my fingers doing this. I'm just going to tin up the next capacitor. It's being awkward and not flipping over, so I can. There we go. A little bit of solder. And literally all I'm doing. You can't actually see what I'm doing because it's just shot off out of shot. But basically, all I'm doing is just tiny touch of solder on each pad before I actually put it down. Like that. So we've just got a tiny little bit of solder on each of the pads. I'll try doing this just with my fingers to see if it is easier. I'll have to turn the board around again. That's the other thing, there's a lot of like flipping the board around so you can get the best possible position to go in with. There we go. That's quite nice. Oops. Perhaps not. I'll just try putting a little bit of extra solder on that. I have to say, this is probably one of the most fiddly devices I have worked on. If anyone wants one of these doing, don't ask me to do it. I don't think I fancy doing another of these after this one. No, I'm going to have to try and use them things again. This is fiddly. This makes recapping, you know, like an Amiga 600 child's play. There we go. Got ya. Oops, I made me that. This one's going to be awkward, isn't it? I just know it. The problem is because you've got that IC there, it's very, there's not a lot of room to get like the iron in. And then slide the component in without actually physically melting everything. Right, we've got that side down. And we've got that side down. Wonderful. There we go. That is in place. I might just warm that side and just see if I can get that side down a little bit further. Oh no, there it is, it's happy. It's in. And that side's a nice good connection, that side. So we've got one more capacitor to change over, well, to put in over there. We need to put the cam back on there. And that's basically this board pretty much sorted, I think. And we can move on to the other board, which has got, again, a lot of surface mount components on it. Right, I will get one more of those 22s out. Of course, one more than I wanted to come out of the packet, but never mind. Oops. I will say my next video will do something a little bit different, just to have a change. I don't know whether it'll be a vintage radio or something computer related. Probably something computer related, to be honest. I know some people like seeing this kind of repair. Some people just like the old computer stuff. Some people just like the old radio stuff, the old valve and early transistor stuff. Some people like, you know, a bit of a variation, so I try and cater for all. Okay, we've got that side down. Let's see if we can just get the other side to solder in. I'm actually very slightly off there. I'm going to have to there we go. So I wasn't going to get that tab to solder onto there. There we are. And that's down. Yeah, we've got a good let's just touch that side there again, just neaten it up a little bit. There we are. Lovely. Right, you'll just have to bear with me 1 second and we will come back and we'll have a look at putting that cam back on, so back in a sec. Okay, apologies about that. When one gets older, one has to take more frequent trips to the bathroom. Right, let's see if we can get this this cam back on. I'll just straighten them tabs out, and we should be able to hopefully pop that back in place. Yes, lovely. I'll get that wiring out of the way, and we should be able to bend that back over, and we should be able to solder this can back into place. Okay, I think that'll just hold it temporary while I get some more solder on there. Don't want to go too mad with it, but it does need holding back in place. The can is actually quite important, with it being a DC to DC converter. Obviously it's a switching converter. It will create some noise, and this being a very sensitive radio, that's not what you want in the actual radio. Hence why they added a little screening can around it. There we go. And we just need to add this bit back on the back. And there's a point there it solders on, there's a point there, and there is a point there. So let's see. Yeah, it's got like a little tab there. We need to just solder that down like that. A point on the back here. Just push that down, just solder that bit there. Okay. A little bit of solder there, and there's one more on this side we need to get. Right there. Okay, lovely. So that's basically that soldered back into position. That's holding on nicely. So basically that is that has been recapped now. I'll bend them capacitors back into place. All those are back on. We've cleaned all the nasty corrosion off around there. We've done a little bit of repair work to the solder mask that had been damaged around there. But let me get you zoomed in best I can. Oop. Well, that's a bit too far for this camera. About there. So you can basically get... In fact, let me see if I can get you in on macro. Because I think this does have a macro function on it, so just bear with me a second. Right, there we go. How's that? It's about as best as this camera can actually do. It's only got like a fixed macro on it, but you get an idea anyway. Let me see if I can get you round there. So you can, like I said, you can see here where we've basically done the repair work. I've got the new capacitors in there, the new one on there. Let's see if we can get you around to you. That's them two from before, which we tested and found there was nothing wrong with, so we put them back. Then we've got the other 3 capacitors there that we changed. So basically this board now, let me get you zoomed out a bit now so you can see a bit more. Oops. So basically that board now, like I said, I'm reasonably confident it should work. Unfortunately we can't really just test it like this. Not until we've repaired that board, well, at least recap this board. So what have we got on here now? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think that's one there that's got a purple mark on the 7. So it looks like we've got another 7 capacitors to change on here. Then we've got to put the whole thing back together, and with any luck we may actually be able to get some audio out of it. But I'm going to leave it there for this video, because it's already obviously going to be quite a long video. We've finished this board off now. I'm reasonably happy and reasonably confident that's going to work. So in the next video we'll do the capacitors on this board, we'll finish cleaning this board up, we'll try and put it all together, and like I said, we will see if it's going to work. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there for now. Like I said, I might do a video on something different for the next video up on the channel, but I will be cracking on and carrying on with this, and then like I said, we'll have a either a final video or another video and then one final video on this thing. So I hope you enjoyed that little update on the project, and we'll say thanks for watching and goodbye.